The Connecting Africa Conference 2024, hosted in Johannesburg, South Africa, brought together a diverse group of stakeholders, including government representatives, private sector leaders, and international organizations. The conference focused on critical issues for the continent, such as the urgent need for substantial infrastructure investment to drive economic growth and building intra-regional trade. According to the AFDB, an estimated $100 billion is required to close Africa's infrastructure gap. It is clear that the discussions at this gathering were essential to unlocking Africa's economic potential. Transnet, a key player in the logistics and transport sector, is at the forefront of these efforts, playing a critical role in facilitating cross-border trade. Michelle Phillips, CEO of the state-owned logistics freight company, shared her thoughts on why this year's conference is so important.
Within the SADC region, Transnet sees itself as an enabling partner within the regional value chain, with active rolling stock leases, maintenance services, and sales in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Furthermore, Transnet has joint operating centers in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Mozambique to facilitate the seamless movement of cargo within the corridors. We also have a joint venture with Botswana Railways to operate an inland terminal. Transnet has embarked on a turnaround strategy and is actively pursuing key initiatives to drive growth and diversify its core business through strategic transactions and partnerships. This is inclusive of discussions on rail reforms, which will see the private sector operating their trains on Transnet's rail network. Today's conference provides an opportunity for Transnet to highlight the broader private sector partnerships that are currently being undertaken. Key initiatives for the 24-25 year includes the establishment of the rolling stock company, Solomon, that you're talking about, and other private sector participation opportunities, such as Durban Container Terminal Pier 2, the Manganese Rail Channel and Port Expansion, the Richards Bay LNG gas infrastructure projects, among others. In conclusion, these initiatives underscore our commitment to advance regional trade and integration, which are key drivers of economic growth and industrialization of the continent. Adequate investment in infrastructure, especially in modern and integrated transportation networks, enables industrial development. It is my hope that today's discussions will result in more collaborative efforts being adopted by each of us. We need to come together to build our Africa, the Africa that we want. I thank you.
Despite the significant opportunities presented by regional integration, Sub-Saharan Africa faces formidable challenges. Infrastructure constraints, trade barriers, and logistical bottlenecks remain major obstacles to economic advancement. Solomon Kweno, Vice President for Private Sector Infrastructure and Industrialization at the African Development Bank, shared his insights on public-private partnerships and innovative funding mechanisms to address these pressing issues.
Today's theme is quite important, building Africa together, and it's also in full alignment with the continental vision aiming to foster regional cooperation and integration in support of the African Union's Vision 2063, the African Continental Free Trade Area, as TP eloquently articulated, and the United Nations SDGs. It's also aligned with the AFDB's newly launched 10-year strategy, in which our strategic high-five priorities remain very relevant. I assume that a lot of people know about it, but maybe that assumption is not right. So it's to light up and power Africa. It's to feed Africa. It's to industrialize Africa. It's to integrate Africa. And lastly, to improve the quality of life of all Africans. But given that we're talking about infrastructure, let me touch on the context for the development and rehabilitation of Africa's infrastructure. You've probably heard several statistics, but we at the AFDB estimate that the continent needs $130 to $170 billion a year to finance its infrastructure needs. However, after you look at ODA, private sources, and other sources, there is a gap of between $70 to $110 billion a year. And we need to think through how we're going to really meet that gap.
Panel discussions were the order of the day, featuring experts who delved into the complexities of cross-border trade, industrialization, and sustainable development. Industry leaders also shared their insights on how African nations can better navigate the obstacles they face and harness their collective strengths by pooling resources and expertise.
We need to improve the current performance at Transnet, which is because we've seriously lost quite a number of volumes, both on rail, but also from the terminals perspective, ports and terminals now going via other routes other than our ports. So that's what we take out of it. And that is the key focus of our recovery plan. That's the first part of it. And it's in the significant areas of the economy, the mining, the agriculture, and the manufacturing, the areas that we really need to intervene in. There are a number of growth opportunities which I'm going to talk to. Then the second part, it's not just to fix for the sake of restating the status quo. These sectors need to grow. The economy needs to grow. And that in most instances will require significant capital investments, which it's not a secret, our financial position does not allow us at this point in time to have such significant investment through our balance sheet. So therefore we cannot do it alone. And that is where we see the role of private sector, which we had identified, not now, when we were building this strategy, even 2 or 3 years ago. We said, let's bring in the private sector to help us with the recovery plan, and we've seen some significant achievements. We were working with the private sector in the areas of security measures in our lines, procurement, deployment of critical equipment in our ports, to improve the efficiencies where we can.
The private sector has got the ways and the means in which they can enable us to realize our goals. And secondly, we are also realizing the fact that the fiber that we have now, which is very important in terms of providing connection, has already reached 83%, closer to end of life. So we need lots of money to invest into upgrading this fiber infrastructure that we have. And we can only achieve this with the help of the private sector. And then maybe perhaps just to go back to the question that you raised earlier on in terms of, are you privatizing?
Yes.
We had so many questions from the private sector and even from the public where they were saying, are you really selling the state's asset? Are you getting rid of it? So we are not. What we are saying is we've got the assets, but the assets that we have are not fully utilized. Even to the extent of making sure that we even support our own businesses. We are not able to do that because we need a massive lot of money to invest and to upgrade our infrastructure. So we need the public sector to come to the fore and assist us with operating these investments that we have. And we believe that the private sector, like for example in South Africa, if you look at the likes of Vodacom, MTN, and all of those big companies that are there, they've got the experience and the know-how of operating the network infrastructure. For us, our daily job is not to operate infrastructure in a way that we can make revenue out of it. But we are saying that private sector know how to make revenue out of that. So come and help us. So our intention is to use the network to deliver services to our company.
And also, from a TP or transit property point of view, what we do is we said we cannot put out everything and call it a PSP.
Right.
What are those opportunities and or those frameworks that we can put in place to say this is what from a TP point of view we're going to look at? And for instance, we said we were looking at it from two spheres. One is development leases. Now, we will put into the market development leases opportunities where third parties can come in and apply, and we will advertise, and the third parties or the private sector can apply.
The game changer for intra-Africa trade is the migration of cargo from road to rail. We do have a surplus fleet that is currently parked, which is what we call our B fleet, which is obviously not our new generation. And the idea is to use that B fleet and get into a joint venture partnership with a private sector partner.
Yeah.
And all that we're looking for from this private sector partner obviously is capital to refurbish.
Yes.
We're looking for skills in terms of running a lease company. We are in the business of leasing a rolling stock. We have a relationship with Zambia, Zimbabwe, and in some cases we sell it. But I think a private sector partner that has extensive experience in that regard would also add to the experience that we have. But most importantly, we're also looking for agility.
The Connecting Africa Conference 2024 served as a vital platform for driving the conversation on infrastructure development in Africa, with leaders, policymakers, and experts committed to fostering collaboration. The future of an interconnected and prosperous Africa looks promising for the continent.